Okay, so I'm going to start with, do you remember a million years ago, this was one suggested by Andrew, do you remember this? Oh look, me and baby Jesus have got kind of matching outfits on, but only what we haven't got is matching horns. Where are my horns? Oh, my horns aren't here anymore. So if you remember this one, so this one was, this is all about what's his name, St. Peter the Exorcist. So not St. Peter Martyr, he was 13th century. So that was St. Peter Martyr, and you can tell him because he's always got an axe in his head. So that's St. Peter Martyr. No, this is the little known St. Peter the Exorcist, who is the man for the job when you are walking around a church and all of a sudden you see a statue of the Virgin Mary and baby Jesus. Really hairy vest. You're talking about St. Peter Martyr or St. Peter the Exorcist or me? With the hairy vest comment. So if you're walking around a church and you see that basically statues of the Virgin and baby Jesus have been taken over by the devil, then there's only one person to call. I would love to say it's a Ghostbuster, but it's not. It's St. Peter Exorcist, who will perform an exorcism and everything will be well again with the world. So his story is that he was born in the 3rd century, and he used to go around, if you remember, with a little priest, I don't know if he's a little priest, a priest called Marcellinus or Marcellius, and they were kind of preaching Christianity and making a nuisance of themselves and performing exorcisms, and so they got thrown in prison because it was a pagan world by and large in those days, and then they converted the jailer to Christianity. They converted half of the inmates of the prison to Christianity, and so then they really pissed people off and were taken out into the woods and killed secretly and buried in a secret place so that no one would remember them. But here I am talking about them. So that was weeks ago. Then, do you remember this one? Okay, so who can remember the name for a saint? And if you can remember it, you probably won't be able to spell it. And if you can spell it, you probably won't be able to write it down in time. So the name of a saint who carries on talking when he's had his head chopped off. Okay, I'm going to continue the story and just see whether anyone gets an approximation of this. So this is St. Justus, who is one of these particular category of saints. So St. Justus, who is in this image, this is by Rubens actually, so this is 17th century. He's in this image with his dad and his uncle, both the worst dad and the worst uncle in the world. So, and they've all got the same name nearly. So his dad over on the far left is called Justinus. His uncle in the centre is called Justinianus. You got the bum deal. And the little chap with no head is called Justus, and they're all journeying through France when they get pounced upon by Roman soldiers, and the father and the uncle run off, leave the kid, who's about 9, who gets quizzed by Roman soldiers, and he has to confess to the Roman soldiers that he is in fact a Christian, and so they chop his head off right there and then. His father and his uncle come back, and Justus has picked up his head and is continuing to talk, and so therefore he's made a saint. Anyone remember? Cephalophore. Now you're going, oh yes, I remember that now. He is a cephalophore. That is the name for saints who have their head chopped off and carry on talking. Saint Denis, who's the guy that gave the northern suburb of Paris its name, he was another one. He walked bloody miles. He walked miles with his head tucked under his arm, preaching sermons and gospels and all sorts of things. Must have been quite a sight to behold. As is this image. Oh. On my screen, Holly Penfield and Steph are actually obscuring the most impressive parts of this image, because despite me thinking that this man had fantastic abdominal muscles. Those aren't his abdominal muscles at all. That is a huge phallus. I don't know why I said it quietly. Phallus. Upstairs neighbour. And so this is the story of a mandrake. So this is from a 4th century. 4th century? It's not from a 4th century. 14th century manuscript. Hello, Carrie, hello. This is from a manuscript, and this is the story of the mandrake. Do you remember mandrakes? Okay, and so the reason that this man has got a huge erection isn't because he's so excited about his fabulous headdress. This is a representation of the mandrake and how the mandrake was supposed to form and grow. So the mandrake plant was supposed to be a plant that grew from basically bodily fluids. So if someone was hanged, and mostly this pertained to men, then it was thought that their blood and sperm, I haven't delved into this too deeply to quite understand how this all happens, and maybe no one else has either, and this is possibly part of the problem, and body fat and all sorts of things drips into the ground underneath the tree where they've been hanged, and a mandrake grows. So that's why you've got this kind of dead person on the ground in this manuscript. But the thing is with the mandrake is that you don't want to pick a mandrake. Do you remember why? It's because they scream when you pick them. If you've watched Harry Potter, you might know this, and they don't just do any ordinary scream. I mean, this is a dead person that's being resurrected, and they don't want to be, they don't like it, so they scream a scream that kills a human stone dead. You cannot survive hearing a mandrake scream. So this is why cunning plan, animal lovers look away. This is from the same manuscript. So this is why what the advice to pluck them was, pull them up from the earth, was that you got a dog that you didn't like very much, and you put it on a lead, and you tied one end of the lead or the other end of the lead to the mandrake plant, and then you threw a treat in the opposite direction. So the poor unsuspecting dog would go running after the treat, pulling the plant up. The plant would scream, you'd be well out of earshot, the dog would die. Nice. So why do people want mandrakes in the first place? Well, they wanted them because they were, unsurprisingly, fertility treatments. So sometimes women would sleep with them, bits of their roots under their pillow, and they were used in all sorts of drugs for all sorts of different purposes. So medicinal is the short answer. Talking of medicinal, this is not really medicinal, but this is all to do with the field of medicine, believe it or not. Who can forget a few weeks ago the atomical Venus? Oh, freaky, and I'm still thinking about poor little fictional Giovanni, whose first glimpse of her naked female body is a wax figure like this, which can then be taken apart. So this particular figure, so it is made of wax, and it does have real human hair, and yes, if you look closely, that is a little kind of merkin type thing. A little bit early for that, sorry about this. And yeah, and this was for folk to learn about human anatomy. So this young lady is actually pregnant. So there's a little fetus inside the womb as well, all gorgeous. So these date to the 18th century, and these are actually in the oldest museum anywhere in Europe. It's called La Specola. It's in Florence, opened in 1775, and the whole museum actually started as the Medici family's private collection. And this type of thing might have been in their private collection because they collected all sorts of wonders. You know, the 18th century people were trying to make sense of the world. They were looking at not things that weren't just beautiful, but things that would enable them to understand more about the world. So educational. And this was created as an educational tool for not just medical students to come out and have a look at, but anybody with a family, you know, on a family day out, come to the Specola, this museum. The only, I think I'm right in saying, the only thing that the thing that you had to do to gain admittance was to look clean, probably smell clean, I don't know. So families would go and they would have a look at models like this, the sort of forerunner of Madame Tussauds. But because they said, oh, I don't know what they said really, but the story is that these kind of look so sexy and quite alluring when they haven't got their guts on show, and the reason for that was supposed to be, well, you know, no one wants to come and look at dead people because that's quite disturbing, and so making the wax figure really beautiful and really quite alluring is far less troubling to the man in the street. So hence, when I was talking about this, I think there was quite some concern for little Giovanni, you know, this fictional 10-year-old boy who stumbled across this and has strange predilections ever since. Talking about strange predilections. How about this one? You remember this one? Yes! This is St. Bernard. And so this is St. Bernard, who was a 12th century, I think, or 13th century saint, who was incredibly wise, incredibly intelligent, a fantastic theologian, really good at religious studies anyway, and that was what he was known for, a fantastic scholar. How did he get to be so fantastic? Well, this image explains it. Got it? So this is by an artist. This is again 17th century. It's by an artist called Antonio Cano. I think it's in the Prado in Madrid. But the story goes that St. Bernard is praying one day to a statue of the Virgin and Child, and this time, instead of being possessed by the devil and sprouting horns, that's St. Peter's job. No, this time the statue of the Virgin Mary produces a lactating breast and squirts her breast milk at St. Bernard. So instead of being like, what? Kind of slightly freaked out and a little bit peeved that she's got breast milk all over him, although not in this case, fantastic aim. So he accepts this vision and this miracle, and it is supposed to be this that in fact has given him all this intelligence. So she's sort of given him some sort of supernatural wisdom, as you would have if you received breast milk from the Virgin Mary. Sometimes her aim wasn't quite so good. She got it in the face in this image. In fact, this is supposed to be depicting her getting milk in his eye, because there is, so one story is that he drinks the milk, another story is that she squirts it in his eye because he had an eye infection, and the eye infection was then miraculously cured. But of course, this is also sort of symbolic, has symbolic meaning because, you know, he was blind and now he can see. So a sort of, you know, a metaphor for wisdom again. Yeah, this is a cute little etching. It's in the Rijksmuseum, I think. I don't know if it's actually on display. So if there was one saint who wished that he maybe couldn't see, it might well be this last image we're going to have a look at today, which is, make sense of that, it's all completely bonkers. This is St. Anthony Abbot. Again, not St. Anthony of Padua. St. Anthony of Padua, complete Johnny-come-lately. Again, 12th century St. Anthony of Padua. This St. Anthony, 3rd century. And if you can see him there with all the writing all over him, he is the guy in the blue with a beard. And he is being besieged, clawed upon by all sorts of horrific monsters and visions. So St. Anthony Abbot was supposedly the first Christian saint to go out into the wilderness and live the life of a hermit. So he is considered to be the father of monasticism. In fact, it was pointed out that Paul went out into the desert beforehand, but never mind. We're going to give this to him because he went through a lot to get this status. So poor Anthony suffered visions that were sent by the devil, because the devil was like, oh my God, this guy is far too holy. He is happy to stay here for years and years and years, decades. In fact, he was out in the wilderness for 35 years in total. Crazy guy. And so the devil was like, well, we can't have this. He's getting so holy, he even knows how to levitate. So the devil sent him all sorts of visions to try and put him off his stride. So sometimes they were visions of beautiful women. Sometimes they were visions of food when he was supposed to be fasting. So all about temptation. And when that didn't work, he just sent a whole bunch of devils to torment Anthony and literally to commit assault on the poor guy. So yeah, GBH, suffered GBH. But he didn't succumb to any of this. He survived all of this, and the story goes that he died at the age of 105, looking very perky indeed. I'm not entirely sure I would trust the source of that information, but let's think of him in that way. This image is actually really interesting. This is from an altarpiece called the Eisenheim altarpiece, which the Eisenheim was a hospital. The Eisenheim hospital was very renowned for taking in peasants who had a particular type of disease. It was called St. Anthony's fire, but the disease was caused by eating a bad fungus or barley, I think, or a grain that was infected with a fungus, and it made you hallucinate. Like, hello, this image, completely hallucinogenic, but it also caused issues with your skin, and eventually it just caused your whole nervous system to break down, and you died. She says, all perkily, and then they died. But the interesting, so this image, I think, very much pertains to the things that the poor sufferers of St. Anthony's fire or Erget's disease were probably going through. And in fact, it has been found that LSD has the fungus that was in this grain. It kind of has the hallucinogenic effect, or is used to make LSD, or it's from the same family, if that makes any sense at all, because I am very clearly not a chemist. Whoa, Cool. Okay, so that is what we've been up to. I'm not going to do the ones from last week because they're far too frightening and they haunt me. And we've had enough. Can we ever have enough of Halloween? I don't think we can. I'm going to take Anthony off now. He can go away, and we can have just a little bit more of my bonfire night outfit with my sparkles. And as I said before, you can't see my socks, which is quite good. And yeah, so I can't believe that actually we've been through all that over the last couple of months. Been through all that. It sounds like it was a trial. Maybe it was. I hope it wasn't. But more next week. I need to think of some new plans. I'll have to have a look and see what you've sent me, Andrew. I know you've sent a few things through. But if there's anything particularly spooky or weird, then if I can talk about it, then I will definitely try to. So on that note, I will leave you and wish you a very, very happy Thursday and a happy bonfire night. Don't suppose people with gardens, they can do firework displays for the rest of us to enjoy, right? I guess. And a happy end of the week and a happy weekend, and I'll see you next Thursday. Take care, everyone. Thanks for joining. Bye. 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 Yeah, what a collection. Bye.